Mrs. Rose, there are people here from the government.
I've been gutted.
Please, sir, can you step aside?
No, you step aside. You step aside.
Welcome to the Pride Channel, your home for queer news, LGBTQ plus history, pop culture, entertainment, and iconic conversations.
Patrick. David Rose, you bought the general store.
Least the general store yet.
When people talk about the most important LGBTQ plus television shows of the 2010s, Schitt's Creek almost always enters the conversation. What's remarkable is that the show didn't begin as a cultural phenomenon. When it premiered in 2015, it was a modest Canadian comedy about a wealthy family that suddenly loses everything and is forced to move to a tiny town they once bought as a joke. On paper, it sounded like a fairly straightforward sitcom. Yet over 6 seasons, it transformed into a global sensation, won multiple Emmy Awards, and developed one of the most passionate fan communities television has seen in years.
The only thing that's complicated here is the length of your sleeves. Go long, go short, just pick one. Who came up with the word bunt? Sounds like something you'd need to see a surgeon for.
For queer audiences in particular, the show's success wasn't just about being funny. Plenty of sitcoms are funny. Schitt's Creek became beloved because it offered something many LGBTQ plus viewers had rarely experienced before, a world where queer people could exist without fear, shame, or tragedy hanging over them. To understand why that mattered so much, it helps to look at the history of LGBTQ plus representation on television. For decades, queer characters were either invisible, stereotyped, or doomed. If they appeared at all, they were often the punchline of a joke, the victim of violence, or the source of a dramatic coming-out storyline. Even as representation improved in the 2000s and 2010s, many acclaimed LGBTQ plus stories continued to revolve around pain, rejection, discrimination, illness, or death.
I know how flustered you can get when there's more than one thing on your plate.
Unless it's food.
There's a whole Ebenezer Scrooge thing happening.
That's who I was thinking of.
You know what? I'll do it myself.
Those stories often reflected real experiences and served an important purpose. But after years of seeing queer lives portrayed primarily through suffering, many viewers were ready for something else. That something else arrived in the form of David Rose. From the beginning, David Rose was unlike many queer characters who had come before him. He wasn't introduced through a dramatic coming-out scene. His sexuality wasn't treated as a secret. It wasn't a plot twist. It wasn't something the audience was supposed to debate or speculate about. It was simply a part of who he was. More importantly, nobody in the town seemed to care. This might sound like a small detail, but it became one of the show's defining strengths. Creator and star Dan Levy intentionally imagined Schitt's Creek as a place where homophobia didn't exist. In interviews, Levy has spoken about wanting to create a world that reflected the future rather than the past, a place where acceptance was the default. That creative choice completely changed the emotional experience of watching the show. Most LGBTQ plus viewers are familiar with the anxiety that often accompanies queer storylines. There's usually a moment when a character wonders whether they'll be accepted. A parent might reject them. Friends might abandon them. The community might turn against them. Audiences have been conditioned to expect conflict whenever queer identity enters the story. Schitt's Creek removes that expectation almost entirely.
Wait, one pizza? What is this, Les Mis?
What?
Oh,
No.
snap, David.
Talk to the hand, son, because the ears are no longer working.
Okay, that's not at all how that works.
When David falls in love with Patrick Brewer, viewers aren't waiting for disaster. They're simply watching two people fall in love. That relationship became one of the most celebrated romances in modern television. Part of what made David and Patrick so beloved was how ordinary their relationship felt. Their story wasn't built around trauma. Instead, it focused on all the things that make any great romance compelling. Awkward first dates, nervous confessions, misunderstandings, personal growth, and deep emotional intimacy. Patrick's journey toward understanding his own sexuality is handled with remarkable sensitivity. The show acknowledges that self-discovery can be complicated, but it never turns that process into a source of cruelty or shame. Even Patrick's coming out to his parents unfolds with warmth and compassion. For many queer viewers, these moments felt surprisingly emotional because they represented experiences that television had rarely allowed LGBTQ plus characters to have.
I now pronounce you husband and husband. You may kiss each other.
Then there was the famous wine, not the label conversation.
I do drink red wine, but I also drink white wine. And I've been known to sample the occasional rosé. I like the wine and not the label. Does that make sense?
Yes.
In one of the show's most memorable scenes, David explains his sexuality by comparing people to wine. He likes red wine, white wine, and occasionally rosé. What matters isn't the label, it's the wine itself. The metaphor was simple, humorous, and easy to understand. It quickly became iconic within LGBTQ+ communities because it offered an accessible explanation of sexual fluidity without reducing it to stereotypes. The scene was shared across social media, quoted in articles, and celebrated by viewers who appreciated how naturally it introduced a concept that many shows would have overcomplicated. Another major reason queer audiences connected with Schitt's Creek was its overwhelming kindness. Kindness isn't always fashionable in television. Many modern comedies rely on cynicism, sarcasm, or characters who never grow. Schitt's Creek certainly has sharp humor, but beneath the jokes is a surprisingly sincere belief that people can change for the better. At the start of the series, the Rose family is selfish, entitled, and disconnected from reality. Yet season after season, viewers watch them become more empathetic, more generous, and more emotionally available. This character growth became one of the show's greatest strengths.
I was thinking to myself, who can I trust to help me pick out a woman's blouse? And do you know whose name came to mind?
I don't know, Rachel Zoe.
Yours!
I don't know how to take that.
Alexis Rose evolves from a self-absorbed socialite into a confident and independent woman. Johnny Rose learns humility and reconnects with his family. Moira Rose remains delightfully eccentric while gradually becoming a more supportive mother. Even David, despite all his dramatic tendencies and sarcastic remarks, slowly learns how to trust people and allow himself to be loved. That emotional growth resonated strongly with queer audiences because many LGBTQ+ people know what it's like to build chosen families, discover self-acceptance, and create supportive communities. The show's central message, that people can become better versions of themselves through love and connection, felt deeply familiar. Timing also played a huge role in the show's success. The late 2010s were marked by intense political and social divisions in many parts of the world. News cycles felt exhausting. Social media often seemed dominated by outrage and conflict. Against that backdrop, Schitt's Creek offered viewers a refuge. The town itself became almost utopian. People looked out for one another. Neighbors were quirky but caring. Differences were accepted rather than feared. For queer viewers who regularly encountered discrimination, hostility, or political debates about their existence, spending 30 minutes in Schitt's Creek could feel genuinely comforting.
Have I ever told you how sexy it is to walk in here and see you doing inventory and wearing those little rubber thimbles on your fingers?
They help me flip the pages easier.
Hot.
The show wasn't pretending that real-world problems didn't exist. Instead, it was offering a vision of what acceptance could look like if those problems were overcome. That aspirational quality made the series feel hopeful without becoming unrealistic. The rise of streaming also helped transform the show into a phenomenon. During its early seasons, ratings were relatively modest, but once audiences discovered it through streaming platforms, word of mouth spread rapidly. Fans recommended it to friends, families, and online communities. Then came 2020. As the world faced lockdowns and uncertainty, millions of people were searching for comfort television. Schitt's Creek was perfectly positioned to provide it. New viewers binged entire seasons in a matter of days, and many quickly understood why longtime fans loved it so much. The series finale became a major cultural event, and the show swept the Emmy Awards in historic fashion. What made that success especially meaningful for LGBTQ+ audiences was that it happened without the show compromising its queer identity. David and Patrick's relationship wasn't hidden in the background. It wasn't reduced to token representation. It was one of the central emotional stories of the entire series.
Lights, also we're going with surprise. Happy birthday was too wordy, and we couldn't nail it at rehearsal.
David, what are you doing walking the streets all by yourself?
You make me sound like a feral cat. I'm walking home.
The show's enormous popularity demonstrated something that queer audiences had known for years. LGBTQ+ stories are not niche stories. They are human stories. Perhaps the most important reason Schitt's Creek became such a phenomenon is that it challenged a long-standing assumption about queer storytelling. For years, many creators believed that LGBTQ+ stories needed conflict rooted in sexuality to be compelling. The show proved otherwise. David and Patrick's relationship mattered not because they faced homophobia, but because they loved each other. Their story was funny, romantic, messy, heartfelt, and deeply relatable. In other words, it was allowed to be what heterosexual love stories had been permitted to be for generations. For countless queer viewers, that felt revolutionary. In the end, Schitt's Creek became more than a sitcom. It became a cultural comfort blanket, a celebration of chosen family, and a vision of a kinder world. It showed audiences that queer characters deserve joy, stability, romance, and happy endings just as much as anyone else. And for many LGBTQ+ fans, that's exactly why the show remains so special years after its finale. It didn't just make people laugh. It made them imagine what acceptance could look like. And then, for 6 wonderful seasons, it let them live in that world.
That is the stupidest f***ing thing I've ever heard. That is quite possibly one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard anyone say. Outside of the Downton Christmas special.
Keep up the good work.
Thanks so much. I'm just gonna use this now. So.
Thanks for watching the Pride Channel. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, subscribe, and join the conversation in the comments. Until next time, stay proud.